It occurred to me that all of you lovely people who like all of my photographs of my garden actually have very little idea of what the garden layout is like, because it is a little confusing. So, having the technology and not much else to do, I thought I'd give you a quick tour of my back garden. So, having moved out of the kitchen, through the utility, out of the back door, and there is my famous borrowed landscape. That is the Carron Valley, just coming to life after the long winter sleep. It's called a borrowed landscape, which means it's part of my garden, but I don't have to look after it. So down the steps, being careful not to trip over the hose, there's the famous greenhouse, and the rhubarb, and the salad bed, strawberries, the cold frame containing the marrows and the beans waiting to go in, and the drying green, as I laughingly call it, which is basically just a dumping ground for all of the equipment, including the little shed where I keep the bird food, and the big wooden shed that I inherited with the property, and that's the gate up to the front driveway. So, turning around, we go down the path that runs along the back of the house. It's a very long, narrow garden at this point. There is the spring garden, which I planted with narcissi and crocuses and fritillaries. The fritillaries are just beginning to show. And those two gnomes, yes, well, Mum and I rescued those from outside a house in Bootle in Cumbria. They were being thrown out for the dustmen, and we couldn't let that happen, could we? So we rescued them, and they are rather sweet, if gnomes. Sorry. So there's the garden room, and this is the narrowest point of the garden. They fitted this house onto an incredibly long, thin plot, and this bit is literally the narrowest part, because over there is Carron Water, the Carron Valley. That's the river that runs through the gorge just over the other side of my fence. Back down into my garden and to what I call the courtyard. This is the courtyard. This is where I feed the birds. It's a bit of a sun trap. There is my hammock without the hammock actually on it. And this is the path up around the garden. There is my famous pond that I dug with my own two hands, looking glorious with its marsh marigold coming out. So the path curves up and around. I laid most of these paving slabs myself, I'll have you know, to the top of the garden. And that's the very top end of the garden, where it sort of narrows into a V. So coming down the other side, this is the equally famous path down the fence. There is the ever so famous boy dog. Hello, my son. Down the other side of the pond, there it is again. That's the rose arch. I should have cut it back a bit more than I did, and it really needs some attention, but you know, whatever. It looks good. There's the Pieris, and doing very nicely this year. That's not looking terrifically well. That is a big bush honeysuckle looking a bit sick. Down through the other arch, back out onto the courtyard. And there is the garden room from the outside, and there are the steps, so I can come down and feed the birds even in really lousy weather. And that basically is the garden tour. There you are. I hope you've enjoyed it.